Imagine a presence that walks beside you from birth to death. You can't see it, but you can feel its tug in your thoughts, its whispers in your choices. Across cultures and centuries, people have spoken of a hidden twin, an unseen shadow companion whose mission is to sway the human soul. Who, or what, is this evil companion? Long before modern psychology named our impulses, ancient mystics, priests, and storytellers believed that every person carried an invisible double, sometimes guardian, sometimes tempter. In one great monotheistic tradition, this entity is called a Qareen, literally the constant companion. In Persian and South Asian folklore, it evolved into the Hamzad, a spiritual twin said to mirror your every move. In Europe, medieval monks wrote of a personal demon whispering sin, while Jewish sages debated whether our darker urges were an inner drive or an attached spirit. Even in modern self-help language, we still speak of our inner saboteur. In some traditions, the shadow arrives at birth. Texts describe a cosmic bargain in which forces of light place a guiding presence by every soul, while forces of darkness attach a counter-presence, a tempter, whisperer, or parasite. Later, folklore took this further, claiming that the dark companion is an offspring of a primordial rebel spirit, its purpose to test, corrupt, and ultimately claim the human being it shadows. Whether one believes the myth literally or sees it as a metaphor for human psychology, the image is powerful. A spirit twin, perfectly matched to your temperament, walking your path with you, yet always nudging you toward choices you might later regret. Is the evil companion an actual entity, or a symbolic way of talking about our impulses? Ancient texts leave that question open. Some describe it as a living being, a jinn, demon, or familiar spirit. Others speak of it as the evil inclination, a part of our own psyche. Mystics and psychologists alike note that human minds often externalize inner conflict as figures, doubles, or voices. In this sense, the Qareen, Hamzad, or personal demon may be a mythic mirror of our deepest drives. In our journey through the Innerverse series, this first episode will examine how cultures envisioned the unseen companion. In the next segment, we'll dive deeper into how each major tradition describes the origins and powers of this companion, from sacred texts to folklore, and why the idea refuses to die even in an age of science. And so, if the shadow twin is more than a story, where did it come from? To answer that, we must turn back to a time before time, to a scene retold in sacred texts across cultures. There is the figure of the rebel, radiant once, who refuses a command linked to the first human and is cast out. In Islam, he is called Iblis, or Shaitan. In Christianity, he becomes Satan, the accuser. And in Jewish writings, he appears as Ha-Satan, or in Second Temple traditions as Mastema, the Prince of Enmity. Yet instead of annihilation, he is granted a stay, a lease of power, and the freedom to whisper and weave illusions among the children of clay. One telling records his vow, "I will lie in wait for them on every path, from before and behind, from their right and their left. I will adorn for them what destroys them." Another vision shows a war in heaven, a dragon hurled down, his hosts scattered to the earth. In both, the rebel does not coerce but seduces. The battlefield is human freedom itself. From this mythic moment arises the idea of the assignment. Texts speak of a companion spirit fixed to each person, a whisperer, a tempter, a subtle counter-presence. In one tradition, it is called the Qareen, literally the constant companion, who walks with a human from birth to death, knowing their temperament, echoing their desires, decorating what is harmful to make it seem good. Folklore embroidered the tale still further, calling this shadow the Hamzad, a mirror self or a dark twin, sometimes described as the very offspring of the primordial rebel, sent out to stalk every human life. Whether these lines are read literally or as inner psychology given mythic form, the image is potent, a hidden counterpart walking beside us, never visible, yet always ready to press a thought, to amplify a weakness, to lure us off our chosen road. Even in traditions that never codify a one demon per person, echoes remain. The fallen spirit roaming like a lion, the two angels of Hamas whispering in opposite directions, the Yetzer Hara of the rabbis urging what the Yetzer Hatov resists. Across continents and centuries, the pattern repeats: rebellion, permission, temptation, a companion of shadows assigned or imagined, and always the claim that it cannot compel, only call. The question for us, standing here in the present, is not merely whether such a being exists, but why the human mind returns to this same picture again and again, the picture of an unseen self, an intimate stranger, walking just a half step behind. If such a presence walks beside us, how might we recognize it? In the oldest texts, it is never a horned monster, but a murmur, a slant of thought, a nudge of desire. He whispers in the chests of humankind, says one verse. Another cautions, your adversary prowls like a lion, resist him. Rabbinic teachers describe the Yetzer Hara not as a foreign invader, but as an impulse intertwined with life itself, to be mastered, not obliterated. The common theme is subtlety. The companion never seizes the reins by force. It offers, it suggests, it magnifies. We ourselves supply the step. Because of that subtlety, each tradition imagines counterweights. In Islamic lore, the human being is also given an angelic companion, a silent recorder of deeds, a whisperer toward good. In Christianity, there appears the guardian angel, the advocate, the spirit of truth promised in the gospel. In Jewish mystical writings, one meets the Yetzer Hatov, the good inclination, and angelic patrons who plead for the soul. The pattern forms a kind of inner court, an accuser and a defender, a tug of shadow and light around the same heart. Practices arise to tilt the balance. Daily prayer, fasting, almsgiving, confession, meditation, all are portrayed as ways of quieting the dark whisper and amplifying the brighter one. In desert monastic writings, temptations are cataloged like species, so the monk can name and banish them. In Sufi manuals, the nafs is dissected, its stages mapped, its cure prescribed. In Kabbalistic texts, the sparks of holiness are said to be raised out of the shells of impurity through acts of mindfulness and blessing. In each, discipline and remembrance weaken the grip of the unseen companion, or at least unmask its disguises. Modern psychology, stripped of myth, still echoes the theme. We speak of inner saboteurs, automatic negative thoughts, the shadow self. Depth analysts from Freud to Jung to contemporary cognitive therapists chart the very same terrain under different names. Even neuroscience now maps how repeated thought patterns strengthen certain neural pathways, the echo of an ancient whispering written into the brain itself. So the evil companion may be a spirit or an archetype or a neural groove, but whichever it is, the traditions agree on two things. It cannot force you, and it thrives in secrecy. Recognition is already resistance. Naming is already weakening. Every culture, every age has handed down rituals and disciplines for this naming, for meeting the intimate stranger and reclaiming the inner ground it tries to claim for itself. Step back from the scrolls and stories, and a striking pattern emerges. Across continents, centuries, and creeds, the details shift. Names, shapes, hierarchies, yet the outline of the evil companion remains almost unchanged. Why? What does it reveal about us that we imagine a shadow twin at our shoulder? One explanation is moral. If freedom is real, then the drama of choosing must be internal as well as external. Myths embody that inner split as characters, an angel and a demon, a whisperer for light and a whisperer for dark. Another explanation is social. In every culture, storytellers have used invisible companions to explain antisocial impulses, crime, taboo breaking, the things the group fears in itself. By externalizing them, a society can name, blame, and train against them. Psychologists offer a third reading. The evil companion looks very much like what Carl Jung called the shadow, the disowned parts of the personality that surface as projections or self-sabotage. Neuroscience frames it as an evolved negativity bias, a survival mechanism that overattends to threats, narrating them as voices or urges. In both cases, what feels like an external foe may also be an inner pattern, clothed by culture in demon language. Mystics push still further. For them, the shadow twin is not a glitch, but a teacher. The adversary exists so that will, discernment, and self-knowledge can be born. In Sufi poetry, the nafs is a dark horse you must learn to ride. In Christian asceticism, temptation is the arena where virtue becomes muscle. In Kabbalah, the shells of impurity conceal divine sparks waiting to be lifted by conscious action. These are not contradictory to the myth, but complete it, the adversary as catalyst. So the archetype endures because it speaks to something universal, our awareness that within us and around us there is both guidance and misguidance, both longing and distortion. To name the evil companion is also to acknowledge our own incompleteness. Whether you call it Iblis, Satan, Mastema, the Yetzer Hara, or simply the shadow, you are pointing to the same pattern, an intimate stranger without which the story of the self would be incomplete. And perhaps that is the deepest mystery of all. We are never entirely alone, but we are never entirely compelled. Between the whisper of the shadow and the whisper of the light, we stand, free to choose which one becomes our own voice. And so we arrive at the edge of the labyrinth. We have followed the shadow from its whispered origins in rebellion, through its many masks in scripture and myth, into the chambers of the human mind itself. What began as a name, Iblis, Satan, Mastema, Yetzer Hara, now feels less like a stranger and more like a mirror, a presence woven into our own story. But what do you believe walks beside you? When you act against your better judgment, is it only habit, or is it something older and darker bending the path? When a sudden thought of kindness or restraint rises up inside you, whose voice is that? If every human life is a corridor between two whisperers, how will you know which one has become your own echo? These are not questions to answer quickly. They are meant to linger like footsteps behind you on a quiet street, making you turn and look. Every tradition we have explored tonight insists on one thing. Recognition is already resistance. Naming is already the beginning of mastery. Perhaps the real mystery of the evil companion is that it leads us back to ourselves, to the freedom to choose which presence we feed and which we starve. In the coming episodes of Innerverse Mysteries of Mind, Spirit, and Energy, we will step further into this hidden country of the self. We'll explore urges, temptations, and demons, transferable negativity, curses and the evil eye, deja vu and out-of-body experiences, auras and chakras, the third eye and hidden energies, manifestation and the unseen architecture of thought. Each journey will take us deeper into the forces shaping the human inner world. So as we close this chapter, ask yourself, what walks with you when you are alone? What voice do you hear in the silence? And if there is an intimate stranger always at your side, perhaps tonight you've begun to see it and to decide who you will be in its presence. This is only the beginning of the Innerverse.